Welcome, dear listeners, to today's reading of Psalm 63 and 64. In these verses, David's deep longing for God and his trust in divine protection resonate with our own journeys. As we listen, may these words inspire and strengthen our faith. Thank you for joining, and may you find peace and encouragement here today. Psalm 63. O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water, to see your power and your glory, as I have seen you in the sanctuary. Because your loving kindness is better than life, my lips will praise you. So I will bless you as long as I live. I will lift up my hands in your name. My soul is satisfied as with marrow and fatness. My mouth will praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you on my bed, I meditate on you through the watches of the night. Because you have helped me, and in the shadow of your wings I will rejoice. My soul clings to you, your right hand upholds me. Those who seek my life will go down to the low places of the earth. They will be given over to the power of the sword. They will become food for foxes. But the king will rejoice in God. Whoever swears by you will boast, for the mouths of liars will be stopped. Psalm 63 opens with a declaration of yearning. O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you. King David wrote this psalm while he was in the wilderness, likely during a time of great personal struggle and exile. His words reveal a soul searching for God with an intensity and fervor that transcends physical need. Just as our bodies need water to survive, David's soul needs God for true sustenance. In the spiritual desert, he acknowledges that only God's presence can quench the deepest thirst of his spirit. This is a powerful reminder to us today. No earthly comfort or achievement can replace the profound satisfaction that comes from communion with God. The image of thirst in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water resonates deeply with those who have experienced spiritual desolation. When life feels empty or when challenges seem insurmountable, we can feel like we're wandering in a barren desert. David's response, however, is not one of despair, but of persistent seeking. His faith teaches us that in our driest seasons, when we feel spiritually depleted, we should turn our attention even more fervently to God. This act of seeking is both a declaration of need and a demonstration of faith. David's words encourage us to cultivate a similar earnestness in our relationship with God, seeking Him early, eagerly, and persistently. David continues with a bold statement of God's power and glory, to see your power and your glory as I have seen you in the sanctuary. Here, he remembers the times when he felt God's presence profoundly, perhaps when he was worshiping in the tabernacle. This remembrance serves as an anchor for his faith in the wilderness. It's a reminder of the importance of recalling moments of divine presence in our lives, especially when we feel distant from God. Reflecting on past experiences of God's faithfulness can fuel our trust in Him and give us strength to persevere through difficult times. The phrase, because your loving kindness is better than life, is a powerful affirmation. David isn't merely saying that God's kindness is comforting, he's stating that it surpasses life itself in value. This speaks to a profound understanding of God's love, one that transcends all human comprehension. To David, God's love is a source of life, purpose, and identity. In our own lives, we often place value on temporary achievements, relationships, or material things. But David's declaration reminds us that nothing in this world compares to the boundless love of God. When we experience His love, we find the ultimate purpose and fulfillment. David responds to God's loving kindness by saying, "My lips will praise you." This simple yet profound act of praise demonstrates the relationship between gratitude and worship. David's praise is not an obligation, but a natural response to the recognition of God's goodness. When we understand the depth of God's love for us, our hearts naturally overflow with praise. Worship becomes not just a ritual, but an expression of heartfelt devotion. So I will bless you as long as I live. I will lift up my hands in your name. David commits to a lifelong act of worship, signified by the lifting of his hands. This act symbolizes surrender and reverence, a physical representation of his devotion. It reminds us that worship isn't confined to words alone, but can be expressed through our actions and gestures. The lifting of hands also represents a reaching out to God, a gesture of dependency and desire for his presence. David's commitment to lifelong worship challenges us to make worship a consistent, enduring part of our lives, one that extends beyond specific moments or places. David then describes the satisfaction that comes from God, saying, "My soul is satisfied as with marrow and fatness. My mouth will praise you with joyful lips." In ancient times, marrow and fatness symbolized abundance and richness. David uses this metaphor to illustrate the depth of satisfaction he finds in God's presence. This satisfaction isn't fleeting or superficial. It is a deep, enduring contentment that fills his soul. Today, many people seek satisfaction in various pursuits, whether it's success, relationships, or pleasure. Yet David reminds us that true fulfillment is found only in God. When we center our lives on him, we experience a fullness that surpasses any worldly achievement or pleasure. David's mention of meditating on God through the watches of the night shows his dedication to contemplation and communion with God. In the stillness of the night, free from distractions, David's thoughts are focused on God. This practice of nightly meditation serves as a model for us, encouraging us to spend quiet, intentional time with God. In our busy lives, setting aside moments for reflection and prayer allows us to draw closer to him, nurturing our relationship and deepening our faith. Nighttime meditation also speaks to a trust in God's presence, even when the world around us is silent and dark. He goes on to say, "Because you have helped me, and in the shadow of your wings I will rejoice." The imagery of being in the shadow of God's wings conveys a sense of protection and security. Just as a mother bird shelters her young under her wings, God provides refuge and safety for those who trust in him. David finds joy in this protection, knowing that he is his defender. This image of shelter and protection is a beautiful reminder that we too are safe under God's care, regardless of our circumstances. David's words, "My soul clings to you, your right hand upholds me," capture a powerful relationship of dependency and support. Clinging to God signifies a deep personal connection, a reliance that goes beyond mere belief. It speaks to a relationship rooted in trust and intimacy. The right hand, often symbolizing strength, represents God's active presence and support in our lives. David's faith is not passive. It's an active, clinging relationship with God, sustained by God's powerful hand. The latter part of the psalm shifts to address the fate of David's enemies. "Those who seek my life will go down to the low places of the earth." This declaration isn't just about vindication. It's a statement of David's trust in God's justice. He knows that those who oppose him ultimately oppose God, and he trusts that God will uphold righteousness. This isn't a call for revenge, but an expression of confidence in God's ability to protect and deliver justice. David's words remind us that we don't need to seek retribution ourselves. We can entrust our struggles to God, knowing that he is just. But the king will rejoice in God. Whoever swears by you will boast. David, as king, places his identity and joy in God alone. This act of rejoicing in God signifies a profound allegiance to the divine rather than to earthly power or position. Those who swear by God align themselves with his truth and glory, finding their boast not in their own achievements, but in God's faithfulness. This is a beautiful reminder that our true worth and joy come not from worldly success or recognition, but from our relationship with God. The final line, "For the mouths of liars will be stopped," brings closure to David's thoughts. Despite the deceit and opposition he faces, David is confident that falsehood will ultimately be silenced. In a world filled with misinformation and deception, these words offer hope that God's truth will prevail. This reassurance encourages us to stay rooted in truth and integrity, knowing that God is our ultimate judge. Psalm 63 invites us into a journey of deepening our relationship with God. It encourages us to seek him wholeheartedly, to find our satisfaction in his presence, and to place our trust in his protection and justice. David's words remind us that true fulfillment and security come not from external circumstances, but from a heart anchored in God. May this psalm inspire us to cultivate a longing for God, to cling to him in all seasons, and to rejoice in his steadfast love. As we reflect on these verses, let us find in God our ultimate refuge and source of joy. Psalm 64, hear my complaint. O God, preserve my soul from the fear of the enemy. Protect me from the counsel of the wicked, from the tumult of the workers of iniquity. They have whetted their tongues like swords. They aim their arrows, even bitter words, to shoot from secret places at the innocent. They shoot at him unexpectedly and are not afraid. They strengthen themselves and persevere in their wicked schemes. They take counsel together to lay snares in secret places. They say, who can see them? They devise evil. They say, we have done it. The plan is ready. The thoughts of the inward parts and the heart of every man are deep, but God will shoot them. Suddenly the arrow will pierce them. Then they will stumble. Their tongue will rebel against them. All who see them will shake their heads. Everyone will fear. They will declare the work of God and understand what he has done. The righteous will rejoice in the Lord and trust in him. All the upright in heart will glory. Psalm 64 opens with an urgent plea. Hear my complaint, O God. Preserve my soul from the fear of the enemy. This verse sets a tone of vulnerability and reliance on God in the face of unseen dangers. David, the psalmist, is surrounded by adversaries whose weapons are not swords or spears, but words sharpened to wound and destroy. In a world where words carry immense power, David's prayer speaks to those who have experienced the pain of slander, deception, or betrayal. It's a reminder that God is attentive to our cries, especially when we feel defenseless against those who seek to harm us with their words and schemes. David's first request is for God to preserve his soul from fear. Fear, especially the fear of unseen or uncertain threats, can be paralyzing. It can dominate our thoughts, cloud our judgment, and steal our peace. In asking for deliverance from fear, David demonstrates a deep understanding of the human heart's vulnerability. He doesn't deny the existence of danger. Rather, he places his trust in God to sustain him and bring him peace. This is a lesson for us. When faced with fears, particularly those that arise from circumstances beyond our control, we too can turn to God, trusting that he will guard our hearts and keep us from falling into despair. The psalm continues, protect me from the counsel of the wicked, from the tumult of the workers of iniquity. Here, David acknowledges that his enemies are not only malicious in their intentions, but organized in their schemes. They have come together to plot against him, using cunning and strategy to bring him down. This reference to the counsel of the wicked highlights the calculated nature of his enemies' attacks, underscoring that evil often operates through subtlety and deception. David's plea for protection against such forces is a recognition that human strength and wisdom are insufficient when faced with the schemes of those who plot in secret. Only God can truly protect us from the hidden dangers and schemes of those who seek our harm. David describes his enemies in vivid terms. They have whetted their tongues like swords. They aim their arrows, even bitter words, to shoot from secret places at the innocent. This imagery emphasizes the lethal power of words. Just as a sword or an arrow can wound or kill, so too can words inflict deep harm. These bitter words are aimed at the innocent, and they are launched from secret places, suggesting that the attacks are not only hurtful, but also cowardly. David's experience reminds us that words have the power to build or destroy, to heal or harm. In a world where words are used carelessly, we are called to recognize the weight of our own speech and to resist the temptation to use our words as weapons. David's description of his enemies' behavior continues. They strengthen themselves and persevere in their wicked schemes and they take counsel together to lay snares in secret places. His enemies are not only persistent in their evil, they are united in their purpose. They work together, reinforcing one another in their plans and schemes. This persistence in wrongdoing serves as a sobering reminder of the power of collective evil. When individuals come together with malicious intent, their impact can be devastating. Yet, David's confidence in God's justice remains steadfast, even in the face of such a formidable alliance. This passage encourages us to hold fast to our faith in God's justice, even when we face organized or overwhelming opposition. David's enemies, emboldened by their success, ask, who can see them? Their question reflects a dangerous belief in their own invincibility. They assume that their actions are hidden, that no one can see or judge them. This arrogance is common in those who are committed to wrongdoing. They deceive themselves into thinking that they are beyond the reach of justice or accountability. But David knows that God sees all, that no scheme or secret is hidden from his sight. This serves as a powerful reminder that nothing escapes God's knowledge. Even when people act in secret, believing themselves to be beyond accountability, God sees and will judge their actions. The turning point of the psalm comes with the words, "But God will shoot them. Suddenly the arrow will pierce them." Here we see a dramatic reversal. The enemies who once aimed their arrows at the innocent now find themselves the targets of God's justice. This sudden turn of events emphasizes the swiftness and inevitability of divine retribution. Those who plot in secret, who believe themselves to be beyond accountability, are brought down by the very weapons they used against others. God's justice is not slow or uncertain. It is precise, and it will come to pass. This verse reminds us that no matter how powerful or invincible the wicked may seem, God's justice will ultimately prevail. As the psalm continues, we see the consequences of God's intervention. Then they will stumble. Their tongue will rebel against them. All who see them will shake their heads. The downfall of the wicked is not only sudden, but also public. Their own words, once used to harm others, now turn against them. This reversal reflects a divine irony. The very instruments they use to destroy others become the means of their own downfall. Witnessing this, people shake their heads, an expression of dismay or amazement at the justice of God. This serves as a powerful reminder of the principle that we reap what we sow. Those who use their words to harm others will ultimately be undone by their own deceit and malice. David goes on to describe the impact of God's justice on the wider community. Everyone will fear. They will declare the work of Gwen and understand what he has done. The judgment of the wicked serves as a testimony to God's power and righteousness. When people witness God's justice in action, they are filled with awe and reverence. They recognize that God is not a distant or indifferent observer, but an active and just ruler who intervenes on behalf of the innocent. This acknowledgement of God's sovereignty inspires reverence and trust in him, reminding us that he is both powerful and just. The psalm concludes with a powerful statement of faith. The righteous will rejoice in the Lord and trust in him. All the upright in heart will glory. In the end, it is the righteous who find joy and peace in God. Their faith is vindicated, their trust rewarded. David's words remind us that regardless of the struggles we face, we can rejoice in the assurance that God is on our side. The righteous may face trials and opposition, but they are never abandoned. They are upheld by God, and in his justice, they find both security and joy. This final verse serves as an encouragement to remain steadfast in faith, trusting that God's justice will ultimately prevail. Psalm 64, therefore, is a powerful meditation on the justice of God. It acknowledges the reality of human malice and the pain inflicted by deceitful words and schemes. Yet, it also celebrates the assurance that God is aware of all things, that he sees even the hidden schemes of the wicked, and that he will bring justice in his own time. David's confidence in God's justice challenges us to place our trust in him, even when we feel vulnerable or alone. It reminds us that God is not indifferent to our struggles. He is a vigilant protector and a righteous judge. In a world where words are often used as weapons, Psalm 64 calls us to a higher standard. It encourages us to use our words to build up rather than tear down, to speak truth rather than deceit, and to trust in God's justice rather than seeking revenge. This psalm is a reminder that God is both our defender and our judge, that he sees and knows all, and that he will act on behalf of the innocent. As we reflect on these words, may we find peace in God's justice, courage in his protection, and joy in his faithfulness. O God, you are my God. With all my heart, I seek you. My soul thirsts for him. For you, my spirit longs to feel your presence, especially in moments when life feels dry and barren. You are my strength and my refuge. Your love is better than life itself. Help me to lift my hands and praise your name, finding satisfaction and joy in your presence alone. Lord, protect me from those who seek harm, from words spoken in secret that wound the innocent. Shield me from the schemes of those who plot in darkness. and keep my heart from fear. Just as you see into the depths of every heart, I trust you to bring justice in your time. Give me courage to stand firm and faith to rejoice in your salvation. In the shadow of your wings, I find my peace. I cling to you, for you uphold me with your mighty hand. Let my heart trust in your justice, and may my lips praise you always. Amen. Thank you, Lord, for being our steadfast fortress. Under the shadow of your wings, we find rest and assurance. Remind us that no matter the challenges we face, you are our hope and strength. Teach us to wait patiently and to place our hearts firmly in your hands, for only in you can we find true peace. May we sing praises to your name forever, for you are our salvation, our refuge, and our God. Strengthen our faith and lead us in your loving kindness, that we may walk in your truth every day. In moments of trial, let us remember that you are unshakable, our stronghold and hope.